Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Steve Leibowitz. We are going to stay away from the big picture issues this week, like the war in Gaza or the hostage deal, and focus instead on the complex issue of the draft of ultra-Orthodox Jews into the Israeli army. Well, joining me today via Zoom is Rabbi Tzvi Klebanow, a founder of Haredi, which became Netzah Yehuda, a 1,000-man IDF brigade, and he is the president of its NGO. And here in the studio with me is IDF reservist Yoni Katz, who has been actively promoting IDF service among the ultra-Orthodox population. And guys, before we begin that conversation, I need to ask about the current cloud currently buzzing about Netzah Yehuda. Let's listen to this brief comment from overnight from the State Department.
After a careful process, we found 5 Israeli units responsible for individual incidents of gross violations of human rights. All of these were incidents much before October 7th, and none took place in Gaza. 4 of these units have effectively remediated these violations, which is what we expect partners to do. It is consistent with what we expect all countries whom we have a security relationship with. For a remaining unit, we continue to be in consultations and engagements with the government of Israel. They have submitted additional information as it pertains to that unit, and we're continuing to have those conversations, consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with the government of Israel that was entered into in 2021. When conclusions are made under actions that fall under the auspices of the Foreign Assistance Act, we are required to consult with officials from the government of Israel, and that is ongoing. We are engaging with them in a process, and we will make an ultimate decision when it comes to that unit when that process is complete.
Well, a lot of words from Washington, and the signaling out of the Army's only ultra-Orthodox unit for sanctions infuriated many in the Israeli military establishment and also across the political spectrum in this country. It comes at a time when the society is fighting a war while considering the deeply political issue of the draft of ultra-Orthodox Jews into the army. The Netzah Yehuda battalion has been involved in several incidents in Judea and Samaria, including the 2022 death of Omar Assad, a 78-year-old Palestinian American who died after being detained. Rabbi, what is your response to the accusations of rights abuses that we're hearing?
I think in Hebrew we have a word. The word is hazui. I mean, I think that it's absurd. It's absurd. The Haredi, or the Netzah Yehuda battalion, is a high achievement battalion which has done outstanding work for the past 25 years. And they have received awards from the Chief of Staff, from the General of Central Command, and many, many other awards for their excellence across the board. If you would try to find a reason why maybe incidents do happen, and they do happen, I mean, because they're not policemen, they're soldiers fighting a continuous battle. One of the reasons could be because the Army had the Netzah Yehuda battalion in the same sector for over 7 years, which is really something that you don't do.
Rabbi, I wanted to ask you about that. I understand that the battalion is largely transferred now to the Golan Heights rather than Judea and Samaria. They'll have less contact with the Palestinian population there. Is that a wise move?
Well, that was what happened about a year ago, but for the last few months, the entire battalion was moved to what's called Otef Aza, the area at the Gaza border, and they are stationed inside Gaza in Beit Hanun, and they're no longer in the Golan Heights. They are totally in the war in Gaza.
All right.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
Yoni, I'd like to turn to you. You are in the IDF reserves, and you've been in the reserves since October. You've been trying to actively encourage ultra-Orthodox Jews to enlist in the IDF. How's that been going? I imagine after October 7th, there would have been a rush to join the army.
So that's a very interesting question. Societal trends don't happen in a day, I would really say. There has been a lot of movement. Already October 8th, the conversation in the society has completely shifted and changed. Again, it's a very big society with large chunks, and obviously some extremes will keep steady. But statements like, something that was very common to be said to me were people who were a bit post-draft age or were just in the wrong point of their life where they didn't feel like it felt. Where in the past they would just sort of go through it and not even give it a second thought. Almost every single one that I had any interaction with was like, you should know, I really feel bad that I didn't go to the army. Now, many people didn't actualize on that bad feeling. The army did open up a program that it had done before, but it was much more successful, called Shlav Bet, which is essentially, it took people who are Haredi, who are from the ultra-Orthodox community, who are post-draft age, above the age of 26, who did want to draft. And those drafts filled up immediately in the first couple months. The amount of people who registered was even greater than the amount of people who ended up actually drafting. And so there was a lot of movement. I can say that just because there's movement doesn't mean you're going to see the results of that immediately. I think that with time we'll see the significant shift that has happened throughout the society.
So it's a process and not something that happened overnight after October 7th. All right, Rabbi, let me turn back to you. Despite what we think and know about Netzah Yehuda as a great fighting unit, as a fine unit in the Army, there's been this negative publicity. Since October 7th, has there been a rise in recruitment in Netzah Yehuda as the only ultra-Orthodox unit really in the Army? And has the recent publicity from Washington tempered back some of that enthusiasm?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a migama. There's a trend right now that we're going to see in the upcoming recruitment. We expect to see a rise. I don't think that it has tempered I think maybe even the opposite is true. I think that there's even more of a reason for many of the youth that want to prove that the Netzah Yehuda is really an outstanding unit, and there will be a rise in the recruitment. I want to agree very, very, very positively with what Yoni said. I've said this for many, many years. This is really about societal change, and it takes time. You cannot compare the opportunities for young men from the Haredi community today, going back to 10, 15 years. There's just no comparison whatsoever. When we started the program almost 25 years ago, there were no options for a young Haredi man that didn't find his place in the what we call the between the walls in the yeshiva. There was no option. Today the options are so broad, and we're expanding them all the time. As a matter of fact, we are now in the coming months we'll be starting a guidance center, which will be something that is a real game changer for Haredi recruitment. It will be an address for Haredi youth to be able to come to understand their options, and we will guide them to the best fit for what they are, whether it be a pre-military mechina preparatory program or or directly into a combat unit, we will be helping them and guiding them to do what's best for them.
Yoni, let me turn to you. I think it's fair to say that in Israeli society, both secular and religious Zionists and even modern Orthodox, there's a strong feeling that there must be a sharing of the burden and the ultra-Orthodox must do their share. Nearly 60-some thousand ultra-Orthodox males have deferment for the last 3-year period, about 27,000 a year, in order to study Torah full-time and avoid the draft. How many of them can be convinced to serve, and what do we know about those who won't?
So it's an interesting statement that you started off with, which was that should do their part to help, because that when you're addressing the ultra-Orthodox community as a whole, and again, this is true for, as obviously it's a generalization, but this is true for most of the ultra-Orthodox community, which is that most of the ultra-Orthodox really view the sitting and studying of Torah as something that is actually an active part of doing your part.
Doing your part for what? For those
for
outside?
the benefit of society, right?
Society.
There are certain quotes,
Israel needs Torah prayer in order to strive as a society.
Correct. Israel requires, there's a often quoted text from a Gemara, which many would contest and say maybe it's taken out of context, but there's a quote that says, Torah magna umatzla, that the Torah protects and saves. And the Torah is the source, again, for the this is how the ultra-Orthodox community views this, it's the source of all of our success and all of our being saved. And that's ultimately a point that definitely in this point in society, you're not going to be able to move people off of. Right now, mind you, the religious Zionists also believe that the Torah is what keeps us safe. They just also believe in an incorporation of their army service along with this.
They do a special service, Hesder Yeshiva, which is like 3 years and 3 years.
Correct. It's around a 4.5-year track, with a year and a half of which you study in yeshiva, then you go off to the army. Each institution individually has a different timeline, but essentially you go off to the army for approximately a year and a half, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the school, and then you come back to yeshiva for about another year and a half. What the ultra-Orthodox response would be is that, there are studies that have been made which show that many who go out to this Esther program don't ultimately end up coming back to yeshiva at the end, and the rates of the religious drop-off is something that's impacted, meaning the ultra-Orthodox community has responses for all of these claims, but that fundamental idea of Torah is at the top is something that I don't think is shakable at the moment. However, with that being said, then there's a broad spectrum of what does that mean? How much of your Torah learning, how much of your Torah study is actually saving you?
All right, we're going to come back to that if I could. All right, Rabbi, I want to turn back to you. When we spoke last week on the phone, you cited the number of ultra-Orthodox birth in Israel as a percentage in the society. It's very, very high and growing all the time. Israeli Jewish population in the country is changing. How much of that population, the ultra-Orthodox population, is even willing to accept the national symbols of the nation, like the flag and the national anthem, and how many are really going to be willing to wear their green uniform proudly?
It's a good question. I don't have the data to answer that, but I do think that we did a what do you call when you ask a
survey
question to survey. We did a survey for to know the effect of neighbors of our soldiers who were serving in the army, and we wanted to know how their view changed about the military since they knew that their neighbor, since they saw that their neighbor was serving in the army. And 87% of the maybe 500 people that were asked said that their view of the state of Israel and of the army had improved, which is a very, very, I think it's a very dramatic thing. I think that it's the people that are very against the state is relatively very small minority of people. We can't say that everybody that's learning in yeshiva is against the state. That's ridiculous. Learning in yeshiva, as Yoni was saying, is something which is part of the reason why, after thousands of years of exile, the Jewish people still exist. If we wouldn't have the Torah study as part of our very lifeblood in us, which carries us forward and carries us from generation to generation, the Jewish people would not continue to exist. So it's a very, very, very deep and very important part of the Jewish people that there are people that are sitting and learning Torah. Now, the question begins, what happens when somebody is only learning Torah part-time or not full-time? It's very, very aggressive to sit and to learn 12, 14 hours a day, which many, many, many young men do. It's a very, very challenging task. And the question is, what do we do with youth that is not totally engaged in learning? I want to tell you that the founder, the very beginning, Nachman Haredi, wouldn't have happened without a Tat-Aluf, a brigadier general who was retired and working for the Ministry of Defense. His name is Yehuda Duvdevani. And he was really one of the founders that bridged together with a group of Rabbanim, a group of rabbis that started the first unit in 1999. Yehuda, to this very day, but his message from the beginning, and that's our message. He went on to television. He said, if you're sitting and learning Torah, then learn Torah and you be mechazek, you strengthen the Jewish people. But if you're not sitting and learning Torah, and you're a young man at 18 years old, then your place is with us. And that's really where we're coming from. We're not looking to take anybody out of the yeshiva who's sitting and learning, because that is the future has always been and will be always the future of the Jewish people. But if a boy is not sitting and learning full time, and it's really to his benefit, and he will do much better in life if he will serve in the Netzah Yehuda program, and he'll build himself.
Rabbi, if I could, I just want to move on. We're running out of time, and I wanted to get to a few more questions to each of you. Yoni, sure. Once in the Army, does the IDF have the ability to offer ultra-Orthodox Jews a lifestyle that they can be comfortable with in the Army, and perhaps study and fight at the same time like they do in Hesder Yeshiva, or is that not possible?
So the Army right now will take any offer which is given, really, to incorporate. There's many ideas and programs that have started up and that have started making their way through the system. There is a plan, that's been talked about on the news, for some sort of yeshiva on some sort of border, which allows for them to continue study. The Army also has, the basic, mediniyut in policy in the Army. If you draft into a Haredi unit, you have certain rights. You have longer time set aside for your prayers in the morning. An
ultra-Orthodox soldier is going to have to be with women?
No. His service
he's going to have kosher food?
He's going to have Mehadrin food.
Strictly kosher food?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that he's going to be asked to do that is against the Jewish religion?
No.
They're afraid that they're going to come out sort of ruined in a way, and they won't make a good husband?
No, that's not really the concern. The issue is that the Army is a system, and systems always have issues. So even though by policy you're meant to get a certain quality of kosher, when you're out in the field for a week and a half training on some sort of mission, could be that the only strictly kosher food that you can be given is little packets of corn that you need to eat for a week and a half, which happens, right? But opposed to if you're a normal unit, you're not limited by that and you're able to get more food. The Army has units all over the place. The Army will
bend over backwards to make sure that any person can serve as religious as they are.
The Army will make its greatest attempt, but in all systems there are flaws, and anyone you speak to who's an opponent of the Haredi draft can list hundreds of cases where systems, as systems do, have things that fall through the cracks. That doesn't mean it's flawed.
All right, let me turn back to Rabbi. Is it best that there are units that are primarily made up of ultra-Orthodox soldiers, or might it be a better idea to have ultra-Orthodox integrated into the Army in general? I would love to see, and I'll know that this will have succeeded when we have ultra-Orthodox pilots.
Right. One day. I think the answer to your question is that that what we view as the best solution is not to be integrated into regular units. Originally, and the first unit that was built, this Netzah Yehuda, which today is a battalion, took a few years to happen because the recruitment was very, very weak. Once it happened, maybe it was 2002. I don't remember the name of the general that announced that he would be making a battalion. But when that happened, then eventually the recruitment started to increase, and it was also we synchronized with the regular army, which is 3 times a year, and the recruitment started to become more of on a timely basis. Then the army decided that they did not want to open up a second battalion. That's what we wanted. We really wanted, and we still want, is a brigade, not a battalion, but a brigade. A brigade is made up of a few battalions, and we have a reserve battalion, we have a regular battalion.
Rabbi, let me ask you this. I happen to have contact with ultra-Orthodox Jews that are also athletes. If they can be good athletes, they could also be fighters in elite combat units. They could also be commanders, officers. They could be, an ultra-Orthodox Jew could be chief of staff, and he could be a pilot if he wanted to be. Or do you disagree? Do you think that the life experience that they've had will make it very difficult for them to serve other than in units that are filled only with ultra-Orthodox?
No, I think that they will do very well. Look, once upon a time, in the beginning years, so all the officers for the battalion had to be brought in from outside units. But today, we have gone through the process, and we have already twice had homegrown battalion commanders that actually recruited in as new recruits and went through the system and succeeded. All of our commanders today in the battalion are all homegrown soldiers, so they can certainly succeed, and they do, and they achieve.
So there's great hope for the future. I'm sorry that we're out of time. The two of you have given me great hope for the future, a great feeling of unity in our country. I didn't get to ask Yoni, put him on the spot about what he thinks the numbers are going to be, possibly quite surprisingly up in terms of ultra-Orthodox recruitment. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have this evening. Thank you to our guests, Rabbi Tzvi Klebanow and Yoni Katz. For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching. Let's win the war and bring them home.